Good morning. So recording should be good to go. I share my screen. Here we go. So basically, reference drawings. Basically, so I've extended, obviously our original deadline doesn't make any sense. So the new assignment, we've got assignment 2 here. It's going to be due at November 29th. So that'll give us a little bit of time. We got 2.5 weeks here to get this done. I think it's way simpler than the previous iteration. So let's take a look at that together. And if you have any questions, let me know. But I do know that there was a comment last week that maybe a slower version, number one, or a slower version, number two, a recorded version of doing some of these area plan calculations might be helpful. So I figured why not kill two birds with one stone, and we'll do an introduction to the assignment, and then I'll show you what the assignment looks like, and it happens to be calculate some area plans with a little schedule on some title blocks. So that's the kind of goal of this little assignment. And just a little breakdown for us here, what the assignment looks like. So I'll post this today. And what I want to see are, let's jump here, gross floor plan, rentable area plan, and then some schedules. That's it. So that's it. And they're going to be on an A3 sheet. So that'll be one thing that we're going to cover today is loading in a different title block. So before we had the kind of standard default title block, we're going to do an A3, which is a 11 by 17 uh, title block instead. And it just means what I want to get you prepared for are how to make a couple of presentation style drawings. So oftentimes in the office, somebody will say to you, hey, can you build this little presentation document for me and show me the rentable floor areas on a sheet? And that's really what the purpose of this little exercise is. So this is the assignment, and then the actual drawings, which you will replicate, are, go figure, very similar, in fact, the exact same as our building for the Best in Town office. So what I want us to do is use our drawings, our model from our previous assignment, and just build on it. So don't worry about, if you've got some things that you needed to modify post assignment, don't worry about that. What we want to see are the kind of updated area plans with some colors and some labels and the actual title on the sheet. And again, this is an A3 sheet. There are 4 sheets, and I'll walk through with you guys what each one does and says. The first thing you might notice is this is just the gross floor plan. So the gross being the entire building. And then it's labeled. And we give it a color scheme and put it on a sheet. Pretty straightforward. One thing you'll notice is that in this instance, and we'll walk through this, this is a little bit more of an advanced tool, is we're going to start to look at things like visibility graphics. So visibility graphics are, what do I have on that you might notice in this drawing? What do I have off? In terms of, they're not layers, but it's basically how we control the visibility of, I have a hard time not saying layers, but how we control the layers of information in the drawing. So in this instance, you can see we don't have grids on, right? So the grids have been turned off, for instance. So I've turned off the topo solid if you happen to have a topo solid in your previous submission. So things are just a little bit higher level of control here. One thing that I'm going to walk you through is I've beefed up the line weight. Really hard to see here, but I've beefed up the line weight of the wall, and I'll walk you through that process too. I might even beef it up even more in this class just to show you what we can do with the visibility graphics to really make drawings. I hesitate to say the word pop, but pop. So ground floor area plan. So ground floor area plan for the gross floor area, main floor area plan for the gross floor area. And again, very similar style, right? We've got just the gross, and then we've got grids are turned off. In this instance, we've turned off the stairs as well, and we'll just keep that in mind when we're doing these drawings. One thing you might notice is I've done my best to kind of keep them roughly in the same location. I'm going to keep an eye on that for us when we do that. It's really difficult to do this in a simple way in Revit. So usually I try and organize it so that I have some reference point, like a grid line, to place the drawings on a sheet. You can see how, you know, oftentimes what will happen, and this will be a complaint in the office, is that your drawings will appear to jump all over the sheet. And this is something that I encountered quite a bit. I'll give you an example. Something that I encountered quite a bit when I was starting out in in uh, in the profession. And apologies, I'm using Bluebeam right now, but just to give you an example. So oftentimes what will happen is you say drawing one, drawing two, and your boss or you or your client will say, why is the drawing jumping all over the screen? So I think what we want to do is make sure that we place our drawings correctly in a way where when we do go between sheets, that we can kind of just keep our eye on the kind of main plan and keep everything intact. Oh, I'm going to move the mic closer, just realizing now. So those are the gross floor area plans. So the gross plans are pretty straightforward. It's just one color. And then a little bit more complicated will be our color legend and our floor plans for our rentable area. So the rentable area is a little bit more complicated, but for us, this is our basement. So again, we're using the best in town office example that you guys have done already. And I just want to add another layer of information to your models, right? So add another layer of information to your models so we can keep building information within that model itself. So this is a rentable area plan. So area plan here. And I've gone ahead and given us some titles for different zones within our area plan. So storage, back of house, stairs, and then the core. So the core is really just meant to represent an area of the building where we've got washrooms, this shaft, and then some elevators. So the big difference here between this version and a rooms version, right? So if we think about back to our calculating areas for our room schedule, we can do things like amalgamate zones. So we're literally creating zones like the core here. We've got more than one room represented across the building. And then the second, I would say the most complicated part, and if you miss this, we'll make sure we cover this together because this is probably the most important thing, is that there's a very fun and easy way to take these stair values and add them together. So we could take those stair values, say you've got multiple stairs on a project in an area plan, a very quick way of calculating what is the total area of all of my stairs, right? So for instance, it could be all of my back of house, all of my core, all of my stairs. And in this case, we're doing the area plan by level. And this is another tool that we're going to look at. We'll see how far we get today, but we'll look at this today, and then we'll look at maybe some more of this tomorrow in class. So I just wanted to familiarize you with what the assignment's going to look like, and then we can kind of jump into some of the tools here. So arrows, just showing the total areas here. Little schedule representing the back of house. Well, I'm having I can see I've got a small error here. Back of house. Oh, I see. I see what I've done. I put the wrong schedule in here. So this should be the, aha. I've swapped these. So I'll have to just swap these super quick. This should actually be on the other sheet. That's okay. So I'll do that live for us so we can see this. I can just see right now this is actually on the wrong sheet. Okay. The last thing is going to be the main floor plan. So we would do, again, a very similar style of rentable area plan, right? So again, just looking at the tool we used last week for the assignment, and then building ourselves a little color legend based on the name of each area, and then building out a little schedule. So I'll show you what I mean where I said the schedule is the wrong one. So this is actually supposed to be over here. Whoops. Just so nobody gets confused. This should actually be here, and this is actually going to be here. That's my bad. This is basement. I'll update this before I post it to Blackboard, but just so that for the purposes of today, so nobody's like, what is he talking about? This is actually the basement area. So you can see storage here. Stairs stay the same, core 47. I just realized I put the wrong schedule on the sheet, so that's my mistake. And then this is going to be, of course, main. Whoops. Main. So here we've got back of house 151 and so on. I just noticed that was not correct. So that being said, we've got just a couple of colors. I welcome you to choose whatever color scheme you want. You do not have to follow this. I've done this super quickly. I do know that Revit over the previous, we'll call it 10 years, has iterated with their default color schemes. They've really tended towards a a more muted color tone. If you've seen the previous versions from even 10 years ago, they would be bright red and bright green and bright blue. I've gone ahead and modified it to kind of be somewhere in between bright and muted. It's up to you. Hands down, the colors on any project will be the first thing people see and the first thing they complain about. So just be mindful of we can change them. We can change them to whatever somebody wants. But just being aware of how this all gets shook out. Area plans can be really powerful things in the office to very quickly represent projects and have your client understand what their overall areas are for their project. I might even show you how to do the total areas, right? So there's a way we can calculate the total areas as part of these schedules. Yeah. So that being said, if you have any issues with your original submission for the Best in Town office submission, in terms of modeling, let me know and we can kind of work together and make sure we've got a model that you can use. I think everybody's got their model from the previous submission, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. But again, the only thing we're looking at are these area plans, schedule, and then the visibility graphics. So keep an eye on the visibility graphics here and keep an eye on how we're going to do the calculations for the schedule. Those would be the two sticking points, I think, for most of us moving into the assignment. So yeah, that being said, why don't I jump into Revit here? And I'm just going to go ahead and why don't I open up the final? How do I want to do this? You know what, I'm going to open up the final model and I'll just show you a couple of what the sheets look like. Make sure that if you don't submit, I would love for everybody to submit the PDF sheets. That is the best way for me to give you appropriate grades. So submit those A3 PDF sheets, get those to me at the end of the month here, November, what did I say, November 20, gotta double check here, November 29th. That's the simplest way. But if you choose to do it strictly in Revit, then make sure, you can see on my bottom left of my project browser here, if you're going to do it strictly in Revit, make sure you've got your sheets set up in Revit so I can give you the appropriate grades. Yeah, just making sure we see what it looks like in the model, right? So this is what, we've got a little view, we got a little schedule. I foresee a couple things with the schedule and some challenges there, so I'll try and go through that slowly. I don't think we'll get to everything today, but let's see how far we can get in terms of getting this gross floor and the rentable. I might end up just doing one of each and then leave you guys to ask questions tomorrow, but also to solve some of the problems solo. Cool. So I am, of course, going to open up the main jam here. Protected model, tutorial models. Okay, I can do it this way. So I am opening up my version of the Best in Town office building. If you have it handy, open it up. if you and follow along. And if you don't, you're free to follow along as best you can, and we'll just work through some of this stuff together. So it's interesting to me to imagine how I would do this in the office. It comes so kind of casual to think about. You can start with the sheet, or you can start with the plans. So depending on your preference, some people really love to set up the sheets first, right? So we've got our kind of sheet set up here. If you don't remember how to do that, we're going to go through that. But in terms of getting the sheet set up, some people like to get all 4 sheets set up as a starting point. Some people would rather start with the plans and do those first and then the sheets, right? So there's a workflow thing here. It doesn't really matter the order that you do things in Revit. It's a little bit more loose. But for our purposes today, I think that we actually haven't done a loading of a new title block into the Revit model. So I think it might be helpful just for everybody to see what that looks like. Before I do that, I just want everybody to see that this is in fact just our standard best in town Revit file here. It's got everything from the first assignment, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to layer in some information. That's it. So I'm going to layer in some information, create some new sheets, and get those area plans in here. So sheets. Let's do some new sheets. So I'm going to right click on our little sheets tool here, right click, hit new sheet, and it'll pop up and say, okay, cool, you want a new sheet? That's cool. I have asked for an A3 sheet, right? So an A3 sheet, that's not here. Panic, right? So panic, where is A3? So we're gonna go ahead and rather than panic, what we're gonna do is hit this little load button. And apologies, I'm gonna go all the way up here. So if you remember from early iterations here, I'm gonna go all the way up. We wanna make sure that we find wherever we've got our model, our families on our desktop if you're working at home, but wherever we've got our Revit families stored. For me, it happens to be C Drive, Program Data, Autodesk, Revit 2024. So if you can't find that, let me know. But we should have all downloaded the Autodesk Revit family files, and that's where this lives. So if you don't have that, please download the files from Autodesk, and then you should have access to this A3 title block. So click that Revit 2024 is really where we're going to start. And then we need to get into libraries. Now, I did see a couple of us in Wednesday's class last week. I did see that a couple of us are using the English imperial. So imperial, of course, is imperial measurements. You're going to have inches, you're going to have feet, you're going to have quarter inch to a foot scales. Do your best not to use that. I would suggest we use just English. I realize this is confusing, but English is the imperial, is the metric version. So where it says this English is metric. I realize it's confusing because it says English and then US. So let's make sure we're using, anytime we're going to load families from this database, we want to be clicking on this English metric version. Nothing else says metric, it just says English. And then we click on US, and to be able to scroll down, and we should see this little title blocks file here. So we got title blocks, and this is going to have a bunch of different title block sizes in it. So whether or not it's for this class, whether or not it's for future classes, this is going to show us some of these other title blocks that we can use. So A0 is, I'm going to say the metric sizes and then the imperial sizes, just so everybody knows roughly what they look like. So A0 is roughly 36 by 48, so 36 by 48 inches. A1 is 24 by 36, roughly. I should say they are metric sizes, so I want to be clear. This A0 is twice as big as A1, or the other way, A1 is half as large as A0. And then stepping down, A2 is half as large as A1. So this is an 18 by 24. And then the A3 here is roughly an 11 by 17. So 11 by 17. And then A4 is, of course, our A4 letter size, which is 8.5 by 11. So if you're ever curious, you can grab these title blocks for anything that you're doing related to Studio D&D, anything you're related to your future careers, everybody. So you will likely use, I would argue, you're likely going to use A3 and A0 probably the most. A4 sometimes for what are called sketches for sheets. We're not going to touch that for now, but if you do need a letter or an A4 size, it's also available to you as a default template. A3 is the one we want. So A3 metric. So you can see down here, A3 metric. We got a little preview up here. It's going to look a little bit different from our original A1 title block, and I'll show you what that looks like. So hit open here. You'll see it populate inside of our new sheet file here. So we've got right now inside of Revit, we've got two different title blocks. We've got the A3 title block and we've got the A1 title block. So go ahead and hit that A3 here, hit open. And immediately we see that the title block is a little bit different than our A101 or our A1, excuse me, our A1 title block. So, right? So title block, all of our issue stuff is on the right. This one, it's all on the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and make sure that we label this appropriately. The first thing I like to do is make sure that typically for A is architecture, and these are going to be for things like working drawings, much like we've previously done for our best in town office example. So A is architecture. What I like to do, and your office that you work at the future is going to have some sort of acronym that's going to represent this. I like to make this P for presentation, so P001. And I think, oh, yeah, P001. We'll start with the gross. So I think that's what I titled this one. It might even be P000. Okay, apologies. Make this P000. And what did I title it? We've got, I'm going to go back to my reference drawings, make sure we've got the right title in here. Area plan, basement, gross. I'm just going to go ahead. Area plan, basement, gross. Something like this. I don't have any views set up yet, but that's okay. I'm just going to start here. And I've got my sheet set up. If we go back to our little project browser, you can see that there's nothing on this sheet. It's just the sheet floating in space, hanging out. That's perfect. So this is the third way of doing things. You can generate a sheet and then a view. Some people like to generate all of their sheets and then generate their views. Some people like to generate all of their views and then all of their sheets. Third way, generate a sheet and then generate a view and then generate a sheet and generate a view and so on. So what we'll do right now is, I think this is probably the safest way to keep going here, is I will start to generate an area plan. And for us, if you remember from last week, I just want to walk through this nice and slow and have a nice recording for us so we can see it. If we remember, we're going to come up to the View tab here, and excuse me, we're going to come up to the Architecture tab. And before I do that, oh, I guess I can do it here. So you can see here, the only thing that's available to us here is this area piece. And if you remember from last week, the first thing we're going to do is just make sure we've got the right area and volume computations in this little drop down where it says room and area. Let's just make sure we got the right one set up. It should by default be cool just to do areas. For us, we're just going to keep it at the wall finish for the room area computation. Remember, we've got these 4 options and these radio buttons. At wall finish is how we'll do the room area calculation. And then for the area schemes, we don't have to do anything here. We're just gonna be looking at the gross building, so the gross building one, and the rentable, and that's it. I'm not asking you to do any new schemes. Just leave it for now. I'm just gonna do gross and rentable, and that's it. Computations, area only, at wall finish. That looks good. Hit OK. And so you can do this basically on any sheet, but or any plan or any view. Inside the architecture ribbon here, we've got this little area button. It's the only thing I can do. You can hit that area plan. And remember, we got this little drop down at the type. Do we want to do a gross building area, or do we want to do rentable, or do we want to do GIA? So this can be an easy step to miss. So let's make sure we get it right. Gross building is what we're going to do first. And you can see it's also asking me, do I want to do my roof level? No. So we're just going to do the basement. and the main floor. So it's up to you. You can actually do these both at the same time if you want to get fancy. You can either do them one at a time, or you can do them both at the same time. Generate two different plan views at the same time. If I hold Shift, I can click the second one, and then I can actually generate both of these simultaneously. So watch this. So I'm gonna hit OK. Automatically create. Sure, why not? Looks good. Create. Yes, looks good. Okay. Quickly did two super quick gross floor area plans. We've got, and if I jump down to my project browser, I'll see that those have now populated inside of the project browser. So basement floor plan, main floor plan. Nice and tiny. So I realize I've also done a couple things like turn off the furniture. So in our reference plan, reference drawings, and I've also turned off the section views and the elevation markers. So I knew I did some other things, but it's all good. So here we go. Let's start with the basement. So let's start with the basement here. Already done. Already done. We got the area plan all set. Right. So this is it's been set up for us. The only thing we have to do is get, we're going to adjust some of the visibility graphics. We're going to keep an eye on our scale here. Make sure we got the right scale in here. We're going to turn off some of these elements here. We don't want to see things like the grid or these elevation markers. And we definitely want to make sure we get our color palette on here. And the last thing that I've done is I've actually also made the columns all gray. So quite a bit of stuff going on here, but that's okay. What I'll show you how to do is get to a drawing that's going to look a little bit more like this. Super simple. The idea here is we're just trying to limit the information we're trying to convey. For this example, we've just got the area in, I should also say we've just got the area in meters squared. So I've actually eliminated also my foot squared, my imperial data here. So the first thing we'll do is why don't we make sure we change that first? So this area tag here is pre-populated, right? So it's pre-populated based on the gross floor area. I'm going to go ahead and drop that down. I'm just going to do metric for now. Step one. Step two is it would be great if I can go ahead and I'm going to turn off some of these things that I don't want to see in my area plan. And how to do that is we're going to go up to view, go to visibility graphics, and we're going to start to control some of the things we see inside of this view. So this is how we turn things off and on. In Revit, you turn things off and on based on their family. So we can see the visibility here on the left. Oh, I should start here actually, sorry. Up here, we've got model categories. So model categories are going to be things like walls and roofs and ceilings and doors. And the simplest thing we're going to start with is turning things on and off. So on and off is our little checkbox here. So if we want to find something we want to turn off or on, we can do that by just selecting that little checkbox. I find when you're first getting into this, it can be really complicated to see what is the thing that I want to turn off in a very specific way. So we're going to start easing ourselves into this by doing things like turning off the grids, turning off the furniture, turning off the elevations, elevation markers, turning off the section markers, and we'll start there. So in fact, Revit doesn't just give us everything in one place. It's actually going to say model category. So these are model elements within the Revit interface. So we've got things like, again, our walls and doors and all this stuff. Annotations is actually what we're after. So annotations, I'm just going to drag this over a little bit so we can see them. Annotations are going to be things like, how do we tag things? So we can start to control the things that are turned off and on. Grids are in fact an annotation. So why don't we just start with grids here and I'll turn those off. Jump down here. I can scroll all the way down, make sure we're in the annotation tab here. Hit that little checkbox, hit apply, ta-da, gone like that. So if I hit OK, we can see that we've just made one small change, but starting to clean up that drawing. Grids are great for working drawings. They're great for working drawings and places where we need to reference a Cartesian coordinate, a kind of grid location. So for us, for our purposes, for building up these little area plans, this is not about that. This is just about conveying how much area do we have in our plan? So this is our gross floor area plan. I'm going to jump back into that. If you missed it, I'm going to jump back into this visibility graphics here. And I'm going to turn off some of our other things here. So let's jump back here for some reason. Annotation categories. I'm going to turn off our elevation markers, our section markers, and I think that'll be it for this. Oh, and the topo solid. So let's do the elevation markers. If I scroll down, I'm going to see something that says elevations. So elevations right here, elevations. Click that, hit apply, gone. Last thing, sections. So you can see me now. I'm scrolling. Shortcuts. I know we all love shortcuts. If you don't learn them from me, you'll learn them from somebody in the future. So shortcuts here. If you type the first letter of the thing that you're looking for, it will jump to the first item in that list. So if I hit S, I'm looking for sections. If I hit S in this instance, it's going to jump me right to the S items in this list. I'm going to hit sections, hit apply, turn those off. Look at that. We're just making moves, right? We're trying to get at making our little area plan a little bit more palatable, a little bit more easy to digest. You know, clients don't always need to see all of the grid lines and all of those fun things. So two other things we're going to do. One is to turn off my topo solid. If you don't have a topo solid, that's okay. So you won't need to do anything, but just for practice, make sure we're in view here, jump up to visibility graphics. The topo solid is in fact a model element. So make sure we're in model categories as part of the tab here. Scroll all the way down here. I'm going to look for that T topo solid, hit the check mark, hit apply, gone, toast. Cool. So last thing, actually two last things. You can see here I've got this wonderful concrete column showing up here. Not ideal. Not ideal. I want these all to be the same kind of gray tone, that gray color here. And right now, Revit is using the default for this family. We can control the visibility of this in a couple different ways. The simplest way to do it on a per view basis is what I'm going to show you right now, is to control it within the visibility graphics. So the reason this is important is if I jump to my main floor level, you'll see that, oh, whoops, basement floor level, everything is still on, right? So everything is still on in that basement floor level, but my area plan has all of that information just conveyed in a slightly less, chaotic way. We've just got the area. That's it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna modify the visibility graphics to make this a little gray box that has a little outline in it, and that's it. So let's do that. How do we do that? Go up to view here, get into visibility graphics. We're going to look for, I believe it's actually structural columns. So you can see here, this is a trick with Revit. We've got columns. We're actually looking for structural columns. Those are going to be all the way down here at the end. Structural columns, here it is. So this can get a little bit hairy. So let's make sure we'll do this nice and slow. So projection and surface, you can see these little override buttons. The first thing we'll look at is how are we controlling the visibility of structural columns in this view. So projection is kind of how do we see it beyond, right? So if we think about an orthographic projection, we're looking at a drawing. This would be how do we control the line weights? How do we control the patterns? How do we control the transparency of an object inside of the Revit interface in a projection capacity? So we're not really interested in projection since we have this as a cut in the plan. So we're looking more at over here on the right. And we've got two things. We've got lines and we've got patterns. So the line is going to be the actual outline of this column. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to override that. So if I click that little override button, it's going to say to me, okay, cool. What sort of pattern do you want? And for us, it's going to be a solid line. So we want to see a solid line. You have freedom to do all sorts of things. For our purposes, we're going to stick with a solid line. If we wanted to, we can change the color of that line. I'm going to keep it black for now. it black for now. So we can go ahead. It doesn't really matter. We'll keep it black for now. And then the weight. So the weight, why don't we go ahead and we'll increase the line weight to, I'm going to make it 6 here. So nice and beefy. So a beefy line weight. This is how you have to control the line weights in our views inside of Revit. Trust me, it's way better than AutoCAD. This is a huge, powerful thing inside of Revit. And I'll show you why, probably not in this class, but in future classes, it is great. So now we can say, okay, every single column is going to have a solid line weight in black with a weight of 6. If I hit apply, I should see it immediately. That 6 might have been a little beefy for us, but that's okay. So let's leave it there just so you can see what that looks like. So every single column inside of this view, so inside of this view is now has this level 6 line weight. So what was I actually after? I want to get the gray pattern here. So the cut is that we've done the line, and then the second piece here is actually getting to the pattern across our column. So for us, rather than have this concrete fill, we're going to make it gray. I'm going to try and match the right gray here, but we'll do our best here. So override, click that button. A couple things here. We can control, strictly speaking, the visibility of that pattern. Turning it off and on. We don't need to do that. We're going to look for the pattern here. The pattern is going to be solid. So drop down, solid fill. You can see again, we've got all of these options to modify the fill of this object. Solid fill, and then the color. Let's make, I think it's this gray, but we'll double check here. So that little gray box here. So let's hit OK here. And that's going to override our cut. So I'm going to hit OK, the cut pattern here, and hit apply. And we should see all of our columns turn gray. Ta-da! Magical, right? Looking good, feeling good. We've now got these columns set up where we've got a little bit of thickness, a little bit of pop in them. I'm also going to do same thing for the walls. So the walls are already gray. That's okay. The walls are already gray. But what we want to do is just change the thickness of that surrounding wall, right? So that surrounding wall, we'll change the thickness by changing the line cut, the cut line, excuse me, of the wall itself. Hit that little override button. We don't need to change anything. All we're going to do is change this to 6, change the weight of the line to 6. We don't need to change anything else. Hit OK, hit apply. Boom. Nice, poppin' fresh, right? So if I hit OK here, zoom out a little bit, we can start to see that our drawing is starting to pop a little bit. Those line weights are looking pretty sweet, right? So couple extra things here. What we want to do is make sure, why don't we throw our color scheme on here? So our color scheme comes from the annotate tab. Grab that annotate in there. Go up to our color fill up here. Now, if I just drag this out, it's going to say no color scheme assigned to this view. But I don't care. I'm going to click that. Okay, it's going to force me. It's going to say, okay, fine. No color scheme. I guess I'm going to pick one for you. So scheme 1 is the default one. That's okay for our purposes. I'm going to hit OK here. Boom. Everything is pink. You can choose whatever color you like. We got pink in here. Looking good. I want to modify that color. I'm going to click on the actual scheme legend itself. Hit Edit Scheme. We can do a couple things here. I'm going to retitle this. I've forgotten what I've called. Oh, just gross floor area. So it could be helpful just to title the thing that it is. So gross floor area. Well, floor area. And if you want to change the color, you're welcome to do that. You can change it to whatever you want. Nice little blue in here. Hit OK. Hit OK again. Nice and blue, or purpley blue. Looking good? All right. Why don't we get this onto one of our sheets? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab our basement sheet here, double click it. So our basement sheet's hanging out. And let's go ahead and grab from our area plan, we can grab our basement floor plan. And remember, we click and we drag. Now I know something's going to happen. The scale is way too big for this sheet, but just so you guys aren't panicking when it happens. So if I just click here, huge, way too big, right? So that's definitely not going to fit. So what do we need to do? We're actually going to modify. Oh, sorry, I see a question. I'm just going to jump to the question real quick. Okay, thanks, Forum. So yeah, just make sure I didn't have any questions in here. So what we'll do here is we just need to modify the scale a little bit. If we remember how to modify the scale, a couple ways we can do that. If we double click inside the view, we are now activated inside the view itself. Otherwise, we can right click, activate view. And we're actually going to make this scale 1 to 200. Try and shrink that down a little bit. Boom. All right, do that again. So 1 to 200, and then right click and deactivate the view. Try and get it somewhere smart, right? So we're going to try and get it somewhere smart in here. And yeah, so that's one thing. And then we actually don't have this little title on our sheet. The way that I turn that off, if we remember, is we're going to click on our view itself, come up here to our properties palette, drop down, turn off no title. Looking pretty sweet. So one thing that I noticed while I was building the assignment is that in my head, I really did think that when we go to print this, that these purple area lines will automatically turn off. They in fact do not. So we would end up with these, I just zoom in a little bit, these are our boundaries, right? So our boundaries, how we actually calculate our gross floor area, and they don't turn off when we go to print. So one last thing to change in our visibility graphics here. I'm going to activate the view, go to view in my ribbon here, go to visibility graphics, and now I need to find where the heck these area lines are. And at first I thought, maybe it's an annotation, right? So maybe it's an annotation. It's not. Heads up, it's not. So in fact, it's in the model categories. It is underneath this little areas drop down. Oh, that's also not correct. Where is my? I have to remember where it is. It is. No, it must be in here. Apologies, guys. I have to come back to this. This is literally I did this yesterday, and I was thinking, don't forget this for tomorrow. Areas, 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 areas. I have to come back to this. I do know where it is. I just can't remember on the top of my head. What if I check what it is? What's it called? Area boundary. Okay, let's do that again. Apologies, guys. Sometimes this happens. That's the most important thing is just to usually if I find a dilemma like this, take a couple seconds, try and find it. And if I can't find it, then I jump to the wonderful world of Google and I say, where are area? I could swear it was in here, but I guess not. Area boundaries. There's also a way to search. So let's do that actually. So boundary. Aha. Aha. So if you caught that, look how stupid this software can be sometimes. So boundary, I'm typing boundary into my little category search here. It is under lines. Why would it not be? So it's not under areas. It's under the lines family, under the model category. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys where that lives. So scroll down here. I'm going to look for lines. If I come down to lines here, drop down. Look at all these lines. So it's a line. That's fair. It's a line inside of Revit. But I'm looking for the area boundary line. I'm going to click that off. Hit OK. Ta-da! Gone. But sorry about that little delay there. Sometimes it's tedious to find this stuff. If you do need a hand trying to find it, look in that little category search. And if I just type walls in here, we're going to get just the walls. So quick tip, just to make sure if we're searching for things in our visibility graphics, we can get there. That is the gross floor area. I think that's all I got in here, but let's check it out. Have anything else? So I've done my best to kind of locate this a little bit up here. Just modify this a little bit. Cool. That's gross. So that's the gross floor area piece. The second one we're going to do, we're going to run out of time, but the second one we're going to do is we're going to do a very similar thing for the rentable floor area. So for the rentable floor area, we're going to do a very similar exercise, but we're going to have a couple key changes to how we're going to calculate the areas themselves. And I'm realizing I'm going to run out of time here. So we will let's do another sheet first. So let's make sure we've got a new sheet in here for our rentable area. So a new sheet, sure got that A3 selected, hit OK. And we will do, what did I call it here? Area plan, basement, rentable. Oops. Rentable. Get that in there. B010, whoops, 1010. Just a little sheet setup. And now what we're going to do is we'll try and do this as quickly as possible in the next 10 minutes or so. Hopefully you don't have anything else to do. So we've got, we'll jump back up to our architecture tab. We're going to build a little area plan. So remember, drop down area plan for rentable. So let's click that little rentable button, hit that, do the same thing, and we can do both of these at the same time. So click basement, shift select your main floor, and we'll do both of these at the same time, hit OK. Automatically, sure, why not? Do 2. Oops. For now, I'm going to jump to, we should see a couple extra views populate inside of our plans here. We've got area plans rentable in our project browser. And on the left here, I've got basement floor plan. Right? So all of our accoutrements have come back, our topo solid, our grids, because this is based off of the original drawing. So we will have to go back in and modify our walls, modify our columns, get rid of our grids. But for this purpose, follow along. We're just going to, we literally just did view visibility graphics. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my grids, turn off my sections, turn off my elevations. Remember, I'm just hitting the first letter in the alphabet. Sorry, the first letter in the word that I'm looking for. So E, S for section, G for grid. I'm in the annotation category, so make sure we're doing that. And then I'm also going to jump ahead and go to my lines. Make sure I turn. Oh no, actually, no. I'm going to need to see these for now. Keep the lines on for now. I'm going to look for structural columns. I'm going to quickly change that to. Just change it to 6 here. Okay, and I'm going to change my pattern to solid with a gray fill. Hit OK. And my walls. Change my walls to have a 6. So let's just do 6 here. So now I've done all of the same changes we just did for the other. Oh, and top of solid. Done all of the changes I just did at the same time in like 10 seconds, right? So if I hit OK, boom, done. Super quick, really fast way to do this. One thing that I also like to do, because we've got rooms showing up here, so rooms are 3D elements. I also like to turn off the rooms here just so that we can make sure we're not accidentally grabbing some of these things. So rooms I turn off just because it's simpler this way. So what do we need to do next? We got to split the plan using our area dividers, so our little area boundary. So we're going to split things like our stair. We're going to split things like our back of house. We're going to split things like our, what's the last thing? Stair, back of house, and core. So make sure we do that. So if you remember how to do that, area boundary, and I'm just going to start to draw some closed loops at the center lines of these walls. As best you can, get to the center lines here. It's going to draw some closed boxes, jumping around, drawing some lines, getting in here. Make sure we do this. And that's it. So we've got some, so those are our area boundary conditions. The second thing we're going to do now is we're going to start to populate some of those areas. We're going to use the area tool to start to populate some of these. So we can do this two different ways. We can rename the areas as we go. I'm actually going to just go ahead and start to say storage. Whoops, cancel storage and do that. Click that one in here. If I do stair, go ahead. I'm going to stair here, do a little stair here. What's next? Back of house. Back of house. And then core. Ta-da. So those are our areas. That's how we get the areas into the plan. However, what Revit's going to want to do is it's going to calculate our area color based on, I select my little area here. Remember, we got this little X here. If I select it based on the area here, it's going to select it based on the area type. So we can kind of, store area if I wanted to. We can change this one to, that's going to be really hard to grab. Whoops, really hard to grab. There it is. Grab this. Maybe this is, instead of building common, we call this major vertical penetration. I'm just doing this as an example because I know in class I did this, but I know that just to refresh our minds, we can set up Revit to do this for us a couple different ways. I find this way is not the best. Drop down, major vertical penetrations. I'm just going to give ourselves another little color legend. So if I jump up here to the color legend, same thing, it's going to say no color scheme assigned to this view. That's okay. Click. We're going to make sure we use the rentable scheme 1, hit OK. And now Revit is currently using building common area, major vertical penetrations, and store area to get to these colors. So remember, if I jump down here, I click here, it's using this store area function. If I change this to office, it's going to change this color to office. So I don't want to do that. I don't think any of us want to do that. Instead, what we're going to do is change the scheme. So we're going to change the scheme, and up here we can jump to edit scheme. And what I'd like to do for us is, instead of it being the area type, we're going to do by name. Colors are not preserved. That's okay. So I welcome you to kind of mess around with the colors a little bit. No stress. Try it out. Make a nice little green in here. You can see how pastel-y these are right now. Maybe a little red. A little magenta. Who doesn't like a little magenta? And then we can also change the title here. So we can change the title of this from what's currently shown to, I just called it color legend. So let's just say color legend. Hit apply. Ooh, magenta. So we can see here we've got quite a bit of stuff going on. Man, this is a little blinding. So play with the colors as best as you like. You do not have to follow my colors. Really important stuff here just to get the drawings looking good. I know they don't look good right now. That's just because the magenta is so brutal. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have all of my area tags set to be just with the metric, just to reduce confusion here. And now we also, why don't we go ahead and we'll get this on a sheet. So how do we do that? We're going to jump to our sheet plan here. We're going to throw our basement level onto this sheet. So again, same thing. We've got this sheet is way too big. We're going to jump to this, make it 1 to 200, make it a little smaller, move this over, turn this off, so no title. Ta-da! We've got one piece here. So I'm out of time, but I think that this is a good start for us. If you've forgotten, even within the last week, how to do this, hopefully that wasn't too quick. But trying to get at the visibility graphics is a huge part of this. And then the second piece is getting our area plans to show properly on a sheet. What I'll do tomorrow, just because I feel like it's going to take too much time right now, is to also do our little schedule. So the schedules here are pretty straightforward, but I think the one thing is going to be how we compute the total areas that's going to get to be important for us. So that being said, that is today's little 1 hour tutorial here. And what I can do is I'll post this on YouTube for those of us that couldn't make it today, and make sure that we all have access to this. And that's it. And then I'll see you guys tomorrow. So hopefully that was helpful. Thank you everybody for coming. Who's come? There's a tree trimmer outside my apartment right now, so I'm gonna try and log off so you guys don't get all of this noise in the background. But thanks, guys. So thanks for coming.